Lock the doors and pour yourself a strong cup of coffee, ladies, because the whispers coming out of the studio this morning are absolutely terrifying, and what they are about to do to Ethan and that innocent little girl is downright criminal. I have just received some jaw-dropping behind-the-scenes details about a staged car crash that is going to leave both of them fighting for their lives in critical condition, and the mastermind behind this bloodbath is none other than the child's own biological father. If you thought Ethan was just going to quietly slip out of town with his newfound daughter, you are completely mistaken, because this show is about to wreak devastation on our screens. Right now, the canvas is an absolute mess of chaos, deception, and high-stakes danger. We have Sunny walking blindly into a deadly trap set by Jens, Carly cornered in that creepy, isolated castle by Ross, and the entire police force running in circles trying to figure out who is playing who. Everyone is so distracted by the explosions and the gunfire happening right in front of their faces that they are completely missing the silent, deadly conspiracy creeping up in the background. Ethan thought he was being so incredibly clever. He thought he could use his cunning charm and quick wit to manipulate the power players, trading secrets and throwing his weight around to secure a safe passage out of the city. He genuinely believed he had outsmarted the ghosts of Delilah's past and secured a peaceful future. He packed up his vehicle, strapped sweet little Phoebe into the back seat, and hit the gas, thinking the nightmare was finally over. Let us paint the vivid, terrifying picture of this fateful night. The fog is rolling in thick off the harbor, clinging to the trees like a shroud, and Ethan is gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles are white. He is constantly checking his rearview mirror, sweating, his heart pounding in his chest because he knows that the window to escape is rapidly closing. In the back seat, Phoebe is clutching a small, worn-out stuffed animal, completely oblivious to the fact that she is the center of a lethal, far-reaching conspiracy. She just thinks they are going on a late-night adventure. The tension on that dark, winding road is palpable, the kind of suspense that makes you hold your breath and edge closer to the television screen. Ethan presses his foot down on the accelerator, praying they can just make it across the county line before anyone realizes they are gone. Suddenly, out of the blinding darkness, a massive, unmarked black vehicle surges forward with its headlights turned off. It does not just bump them, it violently, maliciously rams Ethan's car, forcing them off the treacherous cliffside road. The screeching of tires, the shattering of glass, the terrifying crunch of twisting metal, it is a scene straight out of a horror movie. The vehicle tumbles down the steep, rocky embankment, flipping over and over until it finally comes to a halt, leaving Ethan and Phoebe trapped in a mangled heap of steel, bleeding and broken. The assassins do not even bother to get out and check for a pulse. They simply reverse back onto the road and drive away into the night, leaving a man and a child to perish in the cold. But that's not even the craziest part. The most chilling aspect of this entire horrific situation is the identity of the man who ordered the hit. We all knew that Ethan's sudden claim of paternity was a desperate lie to protect the child, but to discover that the real biological father is the one orchestrating this execution is a bombshell that shakes the very foundation of this show. Why on earth would a man want to violently eradicate his own flesh and blood? If the goal was simply to silence Ethan and stop him from blackmailing the wrong people, a simple, targeted hit on Ethan alone would have easily sufficed. There is absolutely no logical reason to include an innocent little girl in the crosshairs unless her very existence poses a monumental, insurmountable threat to someone's empire. This man is not just trying to tie up loose ends, he is trying to erase an entire bloodline from the face of the earth. But that's not even the craziest part. If you ask me, ladies, this goes way deeper than a simple paternity scandal or a dispute over child support. This points directly to a long-buried secret that has been festering in the shadows of the city for years. Phoebe must be the living, breathing key to a massive unsolved crime or a historical conspiracy that we are only just beginning to understand. Perhaps Delilah knew too much? Perhaps she stole something incredibly valuable, hid a crucial piece of documentary evidence, or left behind a genetic legacy that could destroy a powerful, wealthy dynasty. Phoebe does not even know she holds this secret, yet she is marked for death because as long as her heart is beating, the truth has a chance to come into the light. The father is so terrified of what this child represents that he has abandoned all human morality, willing to commit the ultimate sin to keep his dark past hidden. But that's not even the craziest part. The true game changer in this entire storyline, the wild card that no one saw coming, is none other than our favorite gallery owner, Ava. Let us talk about Ava for a moment. She has been dealing with her own massive headaches all week, being summoned and pressured by Sunny, and facing down terrifying threats from Jens. Earlier in the day, she and Ethan shared that flirtatious, tense banter, a moment of levity amidst the chaos. Beneath all that sarcasm and defensive posturing, Ava has razor-sharp instincts. She is a survivor, a woman who has navigated the treacherous underworld for decades, and she can smell danger from a mile away. When Ethan suddenly drops off the radar and stops responding to her messages, a deep, unsettling feeling washes over her. She knows the players in this town, and she knows that when people disappear abruptly, they usually end up in a body bag. Trusting her gut, Ava does the unthinkable. Instead of hiding in her luxurious, secure penthouse and waiting for the dust to settle, she grabs her keys and drives out into the treacherous, foggy night, following the exact route Ethan would have taken to leave the city. Ava arrives at the scene of the crash just minutes after the impact. The sight that greets her is absolutely horrifying. The car is overturned, thick black smoke is billowing into the night sky, and the overwhelming, sickening stench of leaking gasoline fills the air. Any normal person would have frozen in terror, paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of the disaster, but not Ava. She immediately calls the emergency dispatch, screaming for paramedics, and then she scrambles down that steep, muddy, debris-filled embankment in her expensive designer heels. With zero regard for her own safety, she rips open the mangled, scorching hot doors of the vehicle. She drags a bloody, unconscious Ethan out of the driver's seat, pulling him away from the leaking fuel. And then, without hesitating, for a fraction of a second, she reaches into the crushed back seat to pull that fragile little girl from the wreckage. Ava saves their lives with only seconds to spare before a spark ignites the fuel, pulling them to the safety of the roadside just as the emergency sirens begin to wail in the distance. This is a monumental shift for her character, transforming her from a self-serving schemer into a fierce, undeniable hero who is willing to risk everything to save a motherless child. But that's not even the craziest part. As the ambulances arrive and rush Ethan and Phoebe to the trauma center, Ava is left standing on that dark, lonely road, covered in dirt and blood, holding a piece of evidence she pulled from Ethan's coat pocket during the rescue. This is where the story pivots from a tragic accident into a high-stakes, breathless murder investigation. With Ethan fighting for his life in a medically induced coma and unable to speak, Ava takes it upon herself to become the lead detective. She begins to meticulously piece together the breadcrumbs Ethan left behind. She dives deep into the murky, dangerous waters of Delilah's past, tracking down old associates, digging up sealed records, and crossing legal and moral lines that the police would never dare to cross. Ava is absolutely relentless, driven by a newfound protective instinct that she hasn't felt in years. The more Ava investigates, the more she realizes the terrifying magnitude of what she has stumbled into. She thought she was just looking into a disgruntled ex-lover or a minor mob dispute, but the clues are leading her to the highest echelons of power and wealth in the city. She discovers that the biological father is a phantom, a man who has meticulously erased his own identity and covered his tracks to protect his sprawling empire. Ava realizes that this hit was designed to bury a secret that could literally shake the entire foundation of the city. We are talking about decades of lies, stolen fortunes, and innocent blood spilled in the name of greed. Ava is connecting dots that go back to storylines we haven't thought about in years, proving that the writers are finally digging deep into the rich, dark history of the show. Now, let us talk about the incredible, life-threatening danger Ava is putting herself in. By saving Ethan and Phoebe, and by digging into this massive conspiracy, she has inadvertently inserted herself right into the crosshairs of this ruthless mastermind. She is no longer just a bystander. She is the primary obstacle standing between this monster and his ultimate goal. If this father is willing to slaughter his own innocent child to protect his long-buried secret, what on earth do you think he will do to Ava? She is playing a deadly game of chess with a ghost, and every step she takes brings her closer to the edge of the abyss. But Ava's not backing down. We know her history. When she's backed into a corner, she fights like a lioness. And right now, she is fiercely, violently protective of that little girl lying in the hospital bed. The scenes at the hospital are going to be absolute tearjerkers, ladies. I can already picture it perfectly. The steady, rhythmic beep of the heart monitors, the sterile white walls, and Ava sitting vigil by the bedsides of Ethan and Phoebe, refusing to sleep or eat. She is watching this child, realizing that Phoebe is completely alone in the world, surrounded by enemies she doesn't even know exist. Ethan is battered and bruised, clinging to life by a thread, holding the answers locked away in his unconscious mind. The tension is going to be unbearable because we, the audience, know that the assassin could walk through those hospital doors at any moment, disguised as a doctor or a nurse, ready to finish the job. Ava has to be on high alert every single second, trusting absolutely no one, not even the people she usually relies on for protection. Because here's the brutal, jaw-dropping twist of the matter. As Ava peels back the final layer of this conspiracy, she is going to find out that the man trying to kill Phoebe is someone she knows intimately. Someone she has trusted, or at least done business with, in the very recent past. When she finally uncovers that name, when she finally sees the face of the man who ordered the death of his own daughter, the fallout is going to be catastrophic. It will force alliances to shift, enemies to unite, and it will tear legacy families apart. Ava is going to be holding a piece of information so toxic, so incredibly dangerous, that merely speaking it aloud could sign her own death warrant. And just as Ava stands in the dimly lit hospital corridor, holding the final piece of documentary evidence that proves the father's identity and the dark secret Delilah died to protect, the elevator doors slowly slide open. A tall, shadowed figure steps out onto the intensive care floor, the heavy thud of their footsteps echoing menacingly in the silent hallway. Ava slowly turns around, the papers trembling in her hands, her eyes widening in absolute, paralyzing terror as she recognizes the face of the monster staring back at her. The screen fades to black, leaving us screaming at our televisions, desperate for the next episode.